Hi, welcome back to Repton Projects Practical Project Management Seminar 4, Understanding Project Planning. Good to go today, everybody's here on time, thank you very much for that. So just to recap on introductions, I'm Russ Hadfield, the Product Development Director of Repton Projects. I am primarily responsible for our software that we produce and sell. It's called Project on Demand. It's a full project management toolkit which allows you to run any project from wherever in the world you are. So please have a look at that. It's available via our company website, reptonprojects.com. Next to me is our Managing Director, Nick Hollis, who's helped me develop these 5 training seminars. And also a guy named Pete Storer is a project management consultant that works with us as well. He's also assisted. As you can see, we've had about 60 years combined experience in our field through a wide variety of commercial sectors and jobs we've all done over the past. So that's really why we're qualified to teach this today. So, a little bit of a recap about the course in general, in case people have actually missed the first 3 seminars. The aim of the course is to develop an understanding of the organisation, which we looked at in Seminar 1. We looked at the techniques for monitoring and controlling a project in 1, 2 and 3, and we'll also do it in 5. And also, we're going to look at the planning today. So let's move forward. A little bit of a recap to look at what we've done on the previous 3 seminars, just very briefly. Seminar 1, we looked at an introduction to project management, which we looked at why projects fail. We looked at the organisational structures in terms of the flat, hierarchical and matrix management structures. But the most of it was talking about the waterfall methodology, which, as you recall, hopefully, is the 6 stages that we go through: startup, initiation, planning, design, execution and closure. The second week we looked at risk and issue management mainly. We talked about risk identification as being vitally important to our projects, and we looked at the impact analysis of our risks in terms of the probability versus the impact on the project if it becomes an issue. Then we talked about response planning. We looked at, after the impact analysis, how we respond to our risks, and we talked about accepting the risk, we talked about mitigating the risk, we talked about eliminating the risk, and we talked about transferring it briefly. We also talked a little bit about estimation and the difficulties that gives us in terms of time and money, of course. Last week we spoke about quality management and how it doesn't happen by accident. We have to build good, solid quality management into our projects. And we talked about the quality plan as a good starting point for that. We talked about scope and change management as well, how important that is. The scope changes throughout the life of a project, so we need to have a good and efficient change management system to avoid us basically screwing everything up. We talked about testing and defect repair. We have to test this, so let's have a decent strategy. We talked about unit test, talked about integration test and performance and user acceptance test. And we talked about supplier management, selecting the suppliers and managing the quality that we get out of the suppliers. And then we talked about configuration management as well. That's really where we are up to date, so let's get into understanding project planning. We're going to talk about 5 or 6 things today, and this is where we start to introduce a little bit of jargon, I suppose. We're going to talk about something called a product breakdown structure. We're going to talk about something called a work breakdown structure, the dependencies in between the tasks that we have to perform on our projects, talk about a Gantt chart, and then finally a critical path. This is where we start getting a bit jargony really with this, so if you've got any questions on this along the way, because it takes about half an hour just to whiz through these things. So if you're finding yourself asking questions, please jump onto the Facebook group and ask your questions. We normally jump on there at least every day, at the maximum every 2 days, and we'll obviously get back to you as soon as we can. If not, drop me an email, perfectly welcome to. I'll answer your questions, or certainly one of the team will. Introduction to project planning. How do I need to eat an elephant? This is exactly the same as any project really. If I try to solve a massive problem in one go, I'm basically going to fail. So what I do is I break it down into manageable chunks. And that is what this process is really all about. So when I start talking about the product breakdown structure and work breakdown structure and all these things, this is really what I'm trying to achieve. Is I'm trying to get a project and I'm trying to break it down into its constituent elements or parts so that I can manage each individual part. And then I suppose when we build them all back together again, I get my final project. So I'm going to talk about a product breakdown structure for a few minutes. But before I do that, I'm going to have to explain what I mean by the term product. So a product is an end deliverable. So what that means is it's something that we're going to produce as part of the project. And that can be something we deliver to the customer, or it can be something that we use in order to deliver the project efficiently and effectively. So what I'm really getting at here is we can split our products down into two actual categories. There's a management and system products. A management product is an artifact that we're going to produce in the project life that's going to help us manage the project. And that can be something like the project mandate that we spoke about in the first seminar on the startup phase. It can be the business case in initiation. It can be the requirements specification in the planning stage. So we're not actually going to hand over these things at the end of the project to the customer. They're just helping us along the way. However, the system products, these are the customer focused ones. So if we look at the example that we've been using about producing a new website for our customer, these might be the individual pages of the website or functions on the pages. So these are very, very customer focused. So that's really what I mean by a product. A decent sized project might have many, many individual products that when we brought them all back together, they actually form the entire project itself. The product breakdown structure then is a representation of how we actually establish what our products are for our project. So it's a hierarchical structure that breaks down a final product into its constituent subproducts. I'll explain what I mean by this in a slide further down, but this is actually taken from the Prince2 methodology. It's a great methodology. It's really been around for quite a while. I certainly recommend you go and have a quick look at that if you get the chance. So how to build the product breakdown structure. So as I said before, what I'm trying to achieve at the end of this is to list all the products that I need in order to build my project. So in this case, I'm trying to build a website. What I'm really got to ask myself here is, have I got enough information in order to go away and build this website? But all I've got at the moment is I've got a single product, a website. If I was to ask you guys in order to build this website for me, and all I said was, I'd like a new website, please, I'm sure that you'd have a lot more questions. So how we build the product breakdown structure is via a series of iterations. Iteration 1 is obviously, I need a website. So I ask myself, have I got enough information? And hopefully you'll agree with me by saying absolutely not. So I need a second iteration in order to try to break down my website into its constituent parts. In order to do that, as we mentioned a bit earlier, that I can break them down into the management products and the system products. Yet again, have I got enough information? Obviously not. So therefore, I look at the management products on its own, and I break that down into what I'm going to do for the management products. So as you can see, I've got one for a project mandate and a business case, etc. So what I'm really saying there is, in the management product, I need to go and write a project mandate, and I need to go and write and develop a business case. So these are not the ones that I'm going to go and hand over to the customer, but these still need to be done in order to run an effective project. Have I got enough information now? No? Well, let's have another iteration then to find out more information. So I look at the system products, and in this example for my new website, I've got 3 of those. I want some sort of home page functionality, I want a product catalogue, and I want some sort of payment system. Yet again, have I got enough information? Probably not. Getting a bit closer, but still probably not. So let's actually split it down a little bit further. So as you can see, I've broken down the product catalogue into what it is I'm going to try to sell from my website. So I'm going to want a page for the consultancy products that we sell. I'm going to want another page maybe for the product on demand software that we sell, and another page for our training, and then another page for our project rescue packages that we go into companies and help them to rescue failing projects. So as far as my new website is concerned at the moment, that's the example of a product breakdown structure. However, in reality, that would probably be a lot larger than that, because you might want to split up the consultancy into different types of consultancy. You might want to split up the training into different types of training, for example. The main question there is, have I got enough information to go away and build this? So what I've really got now is a list of all the products that I need in a logical, structured way in order to build my new website. So now I know what it is that I'm trying to build. However, what I don't know is how to build it yet. So that leads me on to what's called a work breakdown structure. So a work breakdown structure is a way of breaking down the work required to complete the project. So I can take what I've got out of my product breakdown structure and try to bring that forward into a set of tasks in order to build each product in the product breakdown structure. So in order to do that, I'd like you to start thinking about this and using some verbs when we're building these things. So these are activities. We're going to be doing something. So let's have some verbs in there. And they might be, I need to build something, I need to perform a task. So let's think about it in those ways, really. So the work breakdown structure, again, is very similar to building the product breakdown structure. I'm going to start off with the entire project. So this might be build website as a task. So in order to build the website, have I got enough information? The answer yet again is no. So what I can do here is I can bring in the products from my product breakdown structure and assign tasks that are needed in order to build each individual product within the product breakdown structure. So let's progress that, and we can do it yet again by a series of iterations. I'm only going to look at the system products here as an example. So as you can see, I've got the website as I had in my product breakdown structure. So I need to build the website. I can't do it with that amount of information, so I'll need to split that up into 3 again, as I did on my product breakdown structure. So I've got a home page, and I've got a product catalogue, and I've got a payment system. Again, have I got enough information? And the answer is categorically no. So let's look at my product breakdown structure again and start to expand on my work breakdown structure. And yet again, I've basically just brought them across from the product breakdown structure into my work breakdown structure. So as you can see, I've now got actual tasks. So I would have put some verbs in these, as in build the consultancy page, build the project management page, build the training page, and build the project rescue page. So these are actual tasks that I need to actually go away and perform in order to build my website. You'll notice there's got numbers on these things, in these boxes. Alongside the website, it's got a number 1. And the next level down on the home page, the product catalogue and the payment system, it's got 1.1, 1.2 and 1.3. So what I've done there is I've said that the home page, the product catalogue and the payment system make up the website. So if I build the home page, I build the product catalogue, I build the payment system, therefore it gives me the website. However, I've also split up the product catalogue into 1.2.1, 1.2.2, 1.2.3 and 1.2.4. So yet again, when I've actually built the consultancy page, the project on demand page, the training and the project rescue page, I've automatically built the product catalogue page. So that is a work breakdown structure in a diagrammatic form. But how do we actually build these things in a bit more reality is we're actually quite lucky with this, because I've only gone down to level 3 here, but you can obviously have at level 4 and level 5, level 6, level 7, how many ever that you want to do. But level 1 is the full project. So number 1, in this case, will be the website. 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4 example, which are level 2 activities. They are the waterfall stages. And then 1.1.1, for example, is a level 3, which is an individual task. What we're really interested in is level 1 and level 2s are in order to make this thing nice and structured and readable. The level 3s and beyond that are the actual tasks that we need to perform. So if we look at it from an actual planning tool perspective on the work breakdown structure, as you can see on the left hand side, we've got a WBS column, which stands for work breakdown structure, funny enough, and we've got all the numbers that are associated to the tasks in there. So if we look at the level 1 tasks, it is the entire project, Repton Project's new website project. So in order to build the work breakdown structure, I'm identified the level 2, which are the phases of the waterfall methodology, which is startup, initiation, planning, design, execution, and the closure. So they are on my level 2s. I've not actually done anything yet. So on the level 3s are the actual tasks that I need in order to build the end product, which in this case is a website. So if you see that in green, they're the actual activities or tasks. So in the startup phase, I'm going to have to produce a project mandate. So that is an actual task. Likewise, in the initiation phase, I'm going to produce a business case. In the planning phase, a requirement specification. So when we get down to execution, I'm going to build the website and then test the website and then implement the website and then into closure, for example. So all the green ones are the actual tasks or activities that I need to do in order to build the website. So that is a work breakdown structure. So we've looked at how to identify the individual component parts of our project. And the reason why we do this is because on a website, okay, it's relatively straightforward. It's a really small website, maybe it might only have half a dozen pages to it. However, on really large projects, you can have thousands of actual products that we need to develop. So we need a structured approach in order to gather our sort of requirements really for this. And on some really large projects, we're going to have a lot of activities or tasks in order to do this. So we need to make sure that we capture everything. And a work breakdown structure is definitely the best way of doing that within the waterfall model. However, we've not really finished there yet, because all we've got now is a list of actual products that we have to build or develop. And we've got a list of tasks that we need to perform in order to build our products. However, we don't know what order they need to be done in, really. So there's where we start looking at dependencies within our plans. So a dependency is where one task cannot start prior to the completion of another. So what this is really saying is, say I'm trying to build my website and I need to write some code, obviously, in order to build the website. I need to test that code and I can't test it until I've built it. So I've got a dependency on the guys that are writing the code before I can test it. So that's a very simple example of a dependency. There are others, mind you, and there are other types of dependency. There's one called a start, and there's another one called an end. And what that's really saying is, if I've got a task A, it cannot start until task B has also started. Also, I've got one that's an end, said that I've got a task A that can't end until task B has also ended. The overwhelming vast majority of these dependencies is one that cannot start until the previous one has completed, mind you. So they are dependencies. So it's very important that we get these right. Now, how can I represent these? Because yet again, you might have many of these dependencies. So a picture paints 1,000 words, so they say. So there is something called an activity on node network that may help us do this. So in this example, I've got 3 circles, as you can see, and they are a node or a task in our activity on node network. And as you can see from this, I've got a task X, a task Y, and a task Z. And underneath, I've got task X will take 3 days, task Y will take 5 days, and task Z will take 3 days. The arrows on the circles represent a dependency. So what I'm saying there is task Y cannot start until task X completed. And task Z cannot start until task Y has been completed. So Y can't start until X has been completed, and Z can't start until Y has been completed. And as you can see, we've got 3 days, 5 days, and 3 days respectively. So the entire project, if it's got those 3 tasks in it, are going to take 11 days. A bit more realistic example, if we look at X, Y, and Z, X can be gathering the requirements in the planning phase of the project. Y can be produce the design in the design phase of the project, and Z can be build the website in the execution phase. So what this is saying really is the design can't start until the requirements has been completed. Reality, you can, however, do that, but it adds significant risk into your project, because if the requirements are wrong, you might have wasted your time doing the design. So it's best to wait if you can. I can build the website after the design has been completed, ideally, but you can also start building, I suppose. If you've got half the design, wouldn't recommend it again, because yet again, if the design changes, you've wasted all your time and your money building something that you're going to have to redo. So I can't build a website until I've got a design, and I can't do a design until I've got the requirements for the project. So this is an activity on node network. As you can imagine, these get quite complex quite quickly on larger projects, but that's the basic principle of an activity on node network. Moving on to the Gantt chart. I've got the products that I need in order to build or develop. I've got a set of tasks, and I've got a set of dependencies in between the tasks. So now I can actually really start in my planning process in earnest really now. So what I use for this is something called a Gantt chart. This is the most common representation of a project schedule or plan, and it is definitely the most useful, I think, to be honest. I've used one of these things for a long, long time, and it's the bread and butter of managing your project plans. So basically it lists the activities or tasks that we've identified in the project, and it shows their relationship to one another, which is really the dependencies between one another. And it really shows this using some bars, which I'll show you in a pictorial form in a minute. So let's jump ahead. So as you can see, we've got these blue bars. That's the Gantt chart really. On the left hand side of this, we've got a WBS. That's the work breakdown structure. We've got the tasks that we've identified, and we've got the dependencies identified on the right hand side with the arrows in between the bars. So I've got, for example, I can't produce a business case in initiation phase until the startup phase has been complete, which is the project mandate. So as you can see, the dependency is highlighted by using an arrow in between the two tasks. I've got dependencies and arrows right the way down the list. So I can't produce the requirements until I've got the business case. Therefore, I've got an arrow in between the business case and the requirement specification. So as you can see, it goes all the way down the list from there. So that's the actual Gantt chart. These actual plans are really, really useful. They're easy to maintain. Strongly recommend that you really start to use these things. One of the last bits that we're going to talk about today is what's called a critical path analysis. Yet again, I've got my Gantt chart, and what I'm interested in now is what's the minimum time to deliver the project. Obviously time is money, so they say, so I want to do it in the shortest possible time available to me. But this is a series of tasks that must be completed on schedule for a project to finish on schedule. So yet again, what this is really looking for is that minimum time to deliver the project. So in order for that to happen, so each task on the critical path is a critical task. Might not be making too much sense to you at the moment, but it will in a moment, I assure you. Yet again, I go back to this minimum time needed to deliver the project. So if we put that back on the Gantt chart, by the way, there might also be more than one actual critical path. Sorry if that doesn't make a lot of sense to you, but it will in a moment. If we look at this representation of the critical path in the Gantt chart, you can see most of the bars are allocated in red. So what that means is those red ones are the ones that are on the critical path. So as you can see, I've got a dependency again out of the business case into the mandate. So I've a big arrow there. And I've got a requirement specification that is dependent on the business case. I've got a solution design that is dependent on the requirement specification. And that goes right down to the end of the closed project. You'll also notice there's a task in blue, task 1.5.1, acquire a domain address, which is the address for our new website. In our case, it's www.reptonprojects.com. So in order to actually build this, we need that, but it doesn't matter exactly when we do this up to a point. So what I'm really saying is that what the critical path is it's highlighting the minimum time to deliver the project. Ignore the blue one for a moment and look at the red ones. I'm going to ask you a quick question. I've got the produce project mandate to be 2 days, Monday and Tuesday. So therefore, the produce the business case starts on the Wednesday, assuming that the project mandate is completed on time. What happens if the project mandate doesn't take 2 days, it takes 3 days and goes into Wednesday? What happens to the business case task? That's got to slip by a day, surely, hasn't it? Because it's got a dependency on the project mandate. So not only does the project slip a day as far as the business case is concerned, all the other tasks are also actually pushed forward a day. So at the end of it, it's going to be a day late. So what we're trying to do here is to manage our resources the best way that we can in order to stop that from happening. If we now turn our attention to the blue task, the acquire the domain address, you can see it's 1 day and it's got a dependency on it that leads into the implement of the website. So what that's saying is I can't implement the website until I've got the domain address. However, that's only a 1 day task. If that slips by a day, is it going to have an effect on the implement the website task? Because that is now the Tuesday. But the other task, the implement website task, is not going to start for another couple of weeks. So what that's really meaning is I've got 10 days in order to do that task. before it affects its dependent task, which is implement a website. So I've got a lot of time to play with on that task, so that is not on the critical path. However, if it slips 11 days and goes into the same week that the implement website is concerned, then it will push out that task as well. So until I've got those sort of 10 days, I'm fine. It goes into the 11th day, it pushes the implement website task out. And therefore, the acquire domain address will then be on the critical path. This is really quite important that we look at this regularly, because our plans are not static. They change on a day-to-day basis, because as we spoke about in Seminar 2, we talked about estimation. And when we look at our plans, we've got to estimate all the actual tasks in our plans. So if we get those wrong, things are going to slip. We need to be monitoring this on a very regular basis and very closely. So that's the critical path analysis. So that brings me to the end of our Seminar 4. So yet again, I'd just like to recall, if you forget everything else that I've been speaking about today, please remember these 4 things. The plan is a tool. It's there to help you manage the project. It doesn't drive the project itself. You've got to do that as the PM. Also, Gantt charts are the most useful tool. The dependencies, you've really got to get these right, and also make sure that you understand what the critical path is and how to maintain that critical path, which is the minimum time to deliver your project. This has been quite a lot to get into in about 30 to 35 minutes today, so I really iterate again that if you want to ask me some questions, please do jump on the Facebook page. I'll answer your questions as soon as I get the chance. Next week is the final seminar in the series of 5, and we're going to talk about money. We're going to talk about how to manage the project budget, which we've got to get this right, otherwise we get sacked, basically. We're also going to talk about various management styles. We need to manage, a lot of team management is involved in being a project manager. So I'm going to just look at basic management styles. We're going to talk about sort of team development, which is often missed. Looking to advance our career sometimes, and we get rather bogged down with these things in our projects. So we need to sort of step back sometimes and have a view of that. Also, I'm going to talk a little bit about an alternative methodology called Agile. I think I might have mentioned in the first seminar when we talked about waterfall, there are alternative methods, and Agile is the other main one. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but I'll give you an insight into what it's all about next week. Thanks for your time again. Hopefully see you next week, and have a good week. Bye.